Welcome to the Produce Industry Podcast, your weekly download on current events, trends, market reports, and community discussions. Join us each week from Tampa, Florida, as we cover all aspects of the produce supply chain industry. Ladies and gentlemen, here's your host, my boy, the voice of the produce industry, Patrick Kelly.
Hey, produce people, welcome back to the Produce Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Kelly, also known as Lil Citrus, coming to you live from Tampa, Florida, everyone. That's right, the official voice of the produce industry, where we connect the dots from the farm to the consumer, and we explore all types of trends shaping our global food system. And I love doing it. So, a couple announcements before we get started on this beautiful, beautiful Monday morning. I am headed to West Coast Produce Expo in just a couple days. That's right, the Expo, not the Expo. Need to be able to spell right, everyone? Now, with ever so engaging content and energetic produce people that are going to be at this conference, I'm looking forward to it. It's in Palm Desert, always a must to visit every single year. And last year, I podcasted live with top industry experts that are shaping the global supply chain industry. But this year, I'm running wild and out, right? I'll be at the show with my buddy Mike Chavez. We're going to have one, maybe two cameras on us. We're going to be looking forward to booth hopping. You've heard of beer hopping, right? From bar to bar, getting beer or beer booths. We're going to be booth hopping and meeting some great people. Really excited for that. Now, right here in Florida, I got to let you know, the Floral Expo is in Fort Lauderdale, June 7th. I have not been to this show. There's always something else happening during this show that I'm already pre-booked or pre-registered at. I'm looking forward to going to the floral show sooner or later. I'm just hoping that my schedule aligns the right way in 2026. And then right after that, the Florida Citrus Conference is going to be in Bonita Springs, June 11th through the 13th. And I will be at that. That was my first ever Florida Citrus Conference. So really excited to be heading to that. I did the tailgate, party, but it was more of the tailgate experience, education about a couple months ago with the Florida citrus community, which was great. Now, over the last month, let's talk about this because this is what's crazy. Over the last month, we've been talking about cause marketing, sustainability in our industry. That's with Continental Fresh. That's with Thanks Dreams and Sunrays, right? The snack with impact, okay? Each of these give back to causes, right? Causes in need. But what if there was a certification to do good? What if there was a guideline that really made things fair and equitable? What would that look like? How do you envision how this looks? Is it the Superman S on the chest, right? Like pop it out, be like the FT, like, right? You know where I'm going with this? Today, we're going to go deep. We're going to go into a topic that sits at the intersection of ethics, business strategy, and consumer behavior. And you heard me, FT, that's fair trade. And there's, I would say, misconceptions on the word, right? What it stands for. There's fair trade, which is two words. There's fair trade, which is one word. And we're going to have an expert on that's going to talk about that. Okay. And we're talking more than just a certification here, everyone. It's much larger, right? It's a movement, I would say. And the guy that we have on to talk about this was a starter of this movement. I mean, at least that's what I've read. He'll tell me something different, right? But it's becoming one of the most significant shifts in how products are grown, sourced, and even sold in the world today. And I'm telling you, you probably have seen it. It's happening pretty fast too. I could say at light speed. And today we're going to explore why that matters for you if you're in the produce and supply chain industry. I mean, heck, whether you're a grower, packer, shipper, retailer, marketer, or even an everyday consumer, there's a lot that goes on with this. So let's hear from one of our dynamic sponsors, and then we're going to get almonds deep into this subject before our subject matter expert comes on. So let's hear some history. We'll be right back.
120 years ago, in Groningen, the Netherlands, a small produce business began, trading fresh local fruits. By the 1930s, the Vandenberg family moved to Rotterdam, Europe's burgeoning fruit hub. But when the 1940s brought turmoil, they fled to America, rebuilding their legacy in fresh produce. In 1958, Jack Vandenberg became a trailblazer, importing fresh Chilean fruit to the US, opening doors to global flavors. Today, that spirit of growth and innovation continues, with sustainable packaging, carbon footprint tracking, and the finest fruit varieties. We're redefining freshness for the future. Family, fresh, innovation, celebrating a legacy 120 years in the making. This is Jack Vandenberg.
That's right, everyone. The history of Jack Vandenberg and Jack Vandenberg, the family. Listen, everyone, did it take you on a trip like you were with David Attenborough on Planet Earth? Did it get your emotions going a little bit? Make you feel like, man, this is really cool. Well, if it did, it's because it is. And if it didn't, watch it again. It takes time, okay? But I'm telling you, great company, 100 years in the making, an amazing company. So let's dive into our topic of today. Like I said, let's get almonds deep into this, okay? Fairtrade's growth during economic turbulence is where I want to start. And I did a little bit of research on this subject. And once we get into our subject matter expert, and I'm going to introduce him in just a few moments, we're going to hear some really key insights from one behind the scenes of this entire movement. Now, if we rewind, we back it up a few years, okay? During the pandemic, that's right, 2020, everyone, we're going way back, right? Way back, 5 years ago. Our industry went through, again, a very interesting time. And like so many others, we, faced huge challenges, supply chain disruptions, workforce shortages, inflation. I said that's where it really started. And even geopolitical tensions that now we're even seeing today. Tariffs were up back then. Costs were up. Confidence was completely down. The word proactive wasn't really in our vocabulary. It was resilience. And yet something remarkable happened though. Okay. I'll tell you what, that's when I found Fairtrade. And we also saw Fairtrade certified product sales rise as well. Heck, we brought on Equifruit as a sponsor. I found them on LinkedIn, and I was intrigued of their banana brand, that logo, but then also I was like, what is this? Oh, I said, it must be just another certification. No, it's not just another certification. So you heard it right. That products rose, okay? So while many sectors did struggle to hold their ground, heck, being involved in citrus, that vitamin C, right? We still had to get out there, but we did see Fairtrade continue to expand. And the growth wasn't just like a fluke, like, hey, in today, out tomorrow. No, it was a reflection of shifting consumer priorities. In fact, research showed that even as people, we were cutting back. Many were still choosing, though, Fairtrade items. Some were even demanding it, maybe even paying slightly more for their produce. Coffee, chocolate, and more importantly, they started to realize where their clothes were sourced from. These are all very big. So why? Right? Because consumers want to support systems that didn't just survive crises, but helped others survive them too. Right? Think about it. It's a win-win. They're working together, right? So they were voting with their dollars for transparency, for ethics, and for impact. It's amazing. So that's a majority takeaway for our industry, is that ethical spending is not a luxury good anymore. It's an expectation. Okay. And as we keep moving forward, and the next thing I saw was like the rethinking of the supply chain strategies when it came to Fairtrade. Now let's look at what this means behind the scenes for the supply chain itself. And now historically, procurement and sourcing were all about price, efficiency, right? Availability. But that model left us a little bit vulnerable, right? Just like back in the days, it was stack them high, watch them fly, right? Price, efficiency, availability, product, go, go, go. Well, COVID exposed just how fragile that supply chain system could be when they rely on short-term thinking. A lot of us do that, especially in produce. We trade daily sometimes. Well, Fairtrade, on the other hand, builds its resilience. It's about relationships, long-term values, aligned strategy, mutual benefit, right? These are things that I see. Okay. Now, today, more businesses are asking, who are we sourcing from? Are we investing in our partners? What about their success? Or are we extracting their value only? How does your supply chain reflect ours and your brand value? So again, it's a growing cause, and the answer is often leading them to fair trade. And it's not just the right thing to do, as I thought it was years ago. I'm like, oh, it's just the right thing to do. We get the fair trade agreement, we get the Rainforest Alliance, we get right. And some you're probably you'll laugh at that, and people that are listening, you'll say, what are you talking about, Pat? Those are so completely different. Well, yeah, when you're educated on it and you understand it, companies then can commit to ethical sourcing. And they can see increased customer loyalty, stronger retail partnerships, and a brand story that consumers want to rally behind. It's kind of an advantage. It's kind of a big deal. And it shows up on a spreadsheet, to be honest, and it pays off long term because that includes growth, right? And then what that also does is the power of consumer-led change, right? Because let's not ever underestimate the role of the consumer here, everyone. Every single purchase is a signal, right? And when a shopper chooses a fair trade banana over a conventional one, they're saying, I care how this was grown. I care about the people who grew it. And I want my dollar to reflect my values. And that's a conscious decision, everyone. And again, if you don't do it now, you have to train yourself to do it. It's work. You got to train your brain on these things. And companies are listening, right? We've seen big retailers increase their commitments to fair trade products, not because they're hassling headlines. No, because the market's demanding it. Gen Z and millennials in particular are leading this charge, okay? And they're not quiet about it either. So it's a beautiful thing. Now, this isn't about guilt, everyone. It's about empowerment. Fair trade shows that they have agency. That small choice can drive massive change. And it really can. It really can. So supply chains will evolve, and farmers around the world will feel impact knowing that they can put their fruit, vegetables behind it. And then obviously that conscious decision, right? Let's zoom out. Some critics still think that this is all fluff, okay? Feel it's good in marketing, idealism, right? But the data tells a different story. I really think it does. Companies that operate with purpose and transparency, consistency, right, will outperform their competitors every time. Why? Because they attract loyal customers, passionate employees, and investors who want to be part of long-term solutions, not just short-term wins or short-term views. This is the essence of conscious thinking, okay? The idea that doing good and doing well aren't at odds. In fact, they just reinforce each other, right? Think about that. And that brings us into our segment with our subject matter expert. Now, let's give you guys a little expectation what you're gonna have coming up. So after the break, we'll be joined by someone who has spent his career proving that business can be a force for good, and that fair trade isn't just a movement; it's a model for the future. We have Paul Rice, the founder and former CEO of Fairtrade USA, and he's with us today to talk about his brand new book. You're going to love the title, everyone. Every Purchase Matters. It was just released, actually, this past April through Public Affairs. Now, the book's on Amazon, so you're going to have to check it out. It'll be in the show notes. This book is a must-read for anyone in the business world or anyone who shops and wants to think the way that we're thinking. Paul shows up how conscious capitalism, once dismissed as a niche, is now reshaping global markets. We're going to hear a little bit about some real-world stories, maybe even some practical strategies. And I want to really know the why behind the shift we're all feeling today. So if you've ever wondered, can my business both be ethical and profitable? do consumers really care? And does any of this make a measurable difference? I'll tell you what, Paul's got the answers, and they might just change the way you look at your supply chain and your role in it. So we're going to hear from Zag Technical Services, and we'll be right back with Paul Rice.
Zag Technical Services, we do many things. Managed services for IT needs, including consulting. Another area of expertise for us is cybersecurity, making sure that there's awareness and risk prevention. And then the final piece is the data and software services, where whether it's software automation, data management, even AI, we have things that we can do to help your business. Those are core components that your company relies on. So we have a rich history of being able to manage these IT services so that you don't have to worry about them. You trust us so that we keep your operations going and your business going ultimately. When we talk about what AI can do for you and the time savings, even though you don't think you have something that you can just put AI in, you probably do if you have a business case that could be benefited from automation or efficiencies that are brought in. We can trust AI to do those things, and the beauty of that is you can free up time for your employees to do more meaningful work. So even if you think you may not benefit, I think it's worth a conversation because you will be surprised. We'll walk you through every step of the way, and we're here to help.
Hey, produce people, welcome back. It's always great to hear from Zag Technical Services. Cybersecurity, everyone. Hackers know that the food supply chain cannot be disrupted, and that's why they target us. So check out Zag Technical Services. Everyone, I'm hoping that you've been here for the whole episode so far, and you're not just joining us. If you are, you're going to have to take a step back and listen. Right now, we want to welcome our featured guest today, Mr. Paul Rice.
Woohoo, Patrick. Oh my God, bro. I should be interviewing you. That was
What?
like that. Yes, that was the best introduction to fair trade and conscious capitalism. I'm kind of blown away right now. I'm serious.
Stop
Let's turn
it.
the mic around. I'm going to interview you for the rest of the show.
Oh, goodness great. Hey, we'll just give it to, when I talked to you, first off, what did I tell you, man? I said, I'm passionate about produce, right? That's one thing that I am passionate about. And, one thing that I'll tell you, the co-author to my first book, his name was Hans Finzel, Dr. Hans Finzel, amazing guy. He's actually going to be here at the studio for a show to promote his new book. And, one thing I can tell you is when you have passion into anything, right? He would always tell you, like, Pat, it'll bleed through you and everybody will know it. Right. So that's what it's about, man. So
give me some of that glow. I want it right now.
I'm hoping you got it, brother. I'm hoping you got it. I mean, listen, I've been working with Fairtrade. I've worked with, I would say, consumers in Fairtrade, right? Being a consumer myself and just explaining that difference to them. I've worked with companies like Equifruit, like you heard in the beginning of the show, just about, the mission. And again, for the longest time, I even had a podcast ad that was like, hey, when I wake up in the morning and grab a cup of coffee and a banana, I never thought about fair trade. And then all of a sudden I was like, now I do. And here's why. So, it's kind of cool, man. I think the whole mission's kind of cool.
Thank you.
And you're kind of a brainchild of all this too.
I think so too. And you mentioned it. I mean, I basically spent my entire adult life working with farmers and trying to make sure that the people who pick our fruit and harvest our coffee and now who sew our clothes, that they are able to put food on the table and keep their kids in school and dream of a better future for their kids. Your grandparents were in agriculture. My grandparents were too. My grandfather was a cotton picker in Oklahoma during the Great Depression. And I grew up hearing stories about hard life on the farm. And I've always felt a sense of empathy and sympathy for the families that feed us. And so, fair trade certainly isn't the only way to do it, but it's the movement that I joined now 35 years ago, and that I'm so proud to be a part of.
100%. And what's crazy is you mentioned, some of that movement. 66% of Americans now recognize that fair trade label. I mean, I didn't even recognize, but check this out. So let's travel a bit with each other. How about we do this? Okay. So my
Right on.
wife and I go to Fruit Logistica Berlin last year, and we get on the plane, we go over there, and I've never been to Amsterdam or Berlin. This is our first time, and we're doing the trains. We did the overnight train. Like, we really got a good experience, Paul. And
Wild
right
boy in
when
Amsterdam. Uh-oh.
oh, I was in Amsterdam, baby. You already know. Like, that was my had to visit Amsterdam. Had to check out a couple coffee shops,
Yeah.
and
Trying the
I'll tell
fruit.
you, I recognized the fair trade as soon as I got into Berlin. It was like the advertisements were everywhere.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just because of Fruit Logistica. It wasn't. Like, these are, the European Union, they definitely promote this stuff, man.
Yeah.
And it's
So
big to them.
Fair trade started in Europe, right? Like, I mean, it's not surprising to me that you saw it everywhere. Germany, UK, Switzerland, Holland. Fair trade as a movement started in Europe back in the 1980s. And I was living in Nicaragua at the time. I went to Nicaragua fresh out of college because I wanted to work with farmers and I wanted to fight poverty. I wanted to be in it. I thought I would stay for a year or two. I stayed for 11 years. I was there from 1983 until 1994. And while I was there, I heard about fair trade. And, the movement was big in Europe at the time, and there wasn't really much happening in the US. A couple of small coffee companies doing their own version of fair trade. But I ended up starting Nicaragua's first fair trade coffee co-op. And we sold to fair trade buyers around the world who paid us over $1 a pound when the local market price for coffee in Nicaragua was 10 cents per pound, 10x more money. And that in turn allowed us to keep our farmers on the land. And
That's cool.
in school, we had scholarship programs, we had healthcare programs, we improved housing, we reforested hillsides that had been deforested a generation earlier. We transitioned a lot of farmers to organics, and none of it thanks to anyone's charity, right? All of it thanks to this very simple idea of a great price for a great product. And that's what made me a true believer. I moved back to the States and started Fairtrade USA in 1998 to try and bring that European fair trade movement to the US. So what you saw in Europe was like a glimpse of our future here in the US because, we're growing really fast, and I'm just so excited to be on this journey.
And it should, right? I think that's one thing that we as Americans, because I talked to a lot of international folks, and Americans are I would say they're not quick to adopt certain things, right? They're early adopters with a lot of different ideas, right? I mean, if you think about it, like if you go back, decades, think about Western civilization. I mean, every other country, Far East, wanted to learn about Western civilization because what the US had done, but we also have a lot of learning to do as well, right?
Yeah.
We got a lot of learning to do. And I think that this is a movement that, one, I think it's in its right time period. I think, Paul, you've probably been told this in your career. Yeah, man, you're before your time, right? Probably back in 98, they were telling you this isn't going to work, right? And then look, it's over, it's 20 plus years later and, 30 plus years later. And it's crazy because I've even been told that, like, it wasn't your time then. This is the right generation to do this with, right?
Yeah.
This is the right way of thinking. And again, and it's crazy to say this, and you're going to love this comment, which it's the boomers' fault, right? It was the baby boomers' fault, man, because that was my first book. My first book was about millennials and boomers, the two largest industries. But the boomers, how they did things, how they led companies, how they ran things, this stuff wasn't thought about until Gen X and millennials started coming in going, why are we doing this? And now Gen Z is like, if you print an extra piece of paper, you're going to hear about it, brother. But and people are like, oh, well, they're too sensitive. No, it's okay to be vulnerable and be able to talk about these things because let's talk about fair trade, because I think people don't understand that concept, because there's fair trade, right? And then there's fair dash trade, right? And some people say it's confusing to them. Why is that confusing? Could you at least let's give our listeners that real quick.
Yeah. So, as I said, fair trade as a certification and as a movement really started in Europe. We were a part of that European fair trade movement for our first 13 years. So I started Fairtrade USA in 1998, and Fairtrade USA is a nonprofit. Our mission is to alleviate poverty and protect the environment, and we do that by building transparent, sustainable supply chains. So we work very much in partnership with the industry. We are the standard bearer, so we actually define what fair trade means. The Fairtrade standard today is a 200-point checklist of social, labor, and environmental criteria that farms and factories have to meet in order to become Fairtrade certified. They get audited every year. If they pass their audit, they can wear that Fairtrade certified label on their banana, on their produce, on their coffee. And our market partners, in return, companies like Costco, Whole Foods, even Walmart, they agree to pay more money back to the grower. And that's the key unique sales factor, if you will, of fair trade, is the fact that we have a standardized premium that the market partners pay back to the growers, and that allows them to invest in healthcare, education, housing, clean water, environmental protection, and so on. And that's kind of the secret sauce of fair trade, that impact premium, which in the case of produce is only 2 cents a pound. But that adds up to literally millions of dollars a year. Last year, we delivered over $100 million last year alone back to farming communities around the world. And that in turn enabled amazing outcomes. So we were very much a part of the European movement until 2011. And then we ended up breaking away in order to declare our vision for the fair trade future, which is fair trade for all. Europe does great work. We stand on their shoulders. We love what they do. That's fair trade, one word. However, Europe is focused on small farmers and co-ops. And our movement believes that fair trade should be available, not just to small farmers and co-ops, but to large farms and their workers, right? And so if you look at our expansion, fair trade produce in the United States grew by 25% last year. I mean, we're on fire. Just to put that in context, fair trade, conventional produce last year in the US grew by 2%. Organic produce last year in the United States grew by 6%. Fair trade produce grew by 25% last year. And that is, indicative of something that you spoke to, Patrick, very eloquently, which is the rise of both corporate interest in more transparency and more responsibility in the supply chain, but then also the consumer asking for this. So we're doing our own thing. We're separate from Europe. We have our own label. You'll see 2 different fair trade produce labels or certification labels in the U.S. market. That's fine. It's all good, but we seek to do something bigger and broader and inclusive, right? Including all farms, all products. We're certifying farms in the US now. Europe doesn't do that. So there's some key differences between our approaches. But at the end of the day, it's all God's work, and I'm proud of it.
No, I love that, man. I completely love that. And I'm glad you kind of gave that difference, because I think that sometimes even people in our industry don't understand that. And look, let's go to the biggest concept here, which was the every purchase matters, everyone. And that's what brought you to this point, because we haven't even talked about the book yet. And that's something everyone, this is a book promotion podcast, as you could tell. Okay. Right. But listen, you talk about how fair trade farmers, companies, consumers are all changing the world. And, this book, to me, as I was sent to this, so I've had a chance to glimpse at it. And it was a lot of your passion behind it, right? Your projects, your story. And it's not about you just saying, hey, do this, right? It's more or less saying, if we do this and how we do it will be the change agent, right? I remember reading the story of Tom's, right? The shoes, and about social responsibility and social entrepreneurship, right? And this is about that every purchase matters, whether you're in the produce and supply chain industry or not. USA Today bestseller here, everyone. Paul, this is a great example of one, produce people busting their butt, developing things for the consumer, and then really going at it and giving back even more. So talk about the book a little bit. Yeah. I always say the why, right? What's the why of the book, man? Because I know my whys. Let's let them know.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm really glad you mentioned that we made the bestseller list. In our first week out of the gate, we were the number 5 book in America, which made me very happy. And especially since we beat Green Eggs and Ham, my all-time favorite. Green Eggs and Ham was 28 on the list. We were number 5. But the reason I believe the reason why we made the bestseller list is because I took a storytelling approach to the fair trade movement and to the broader ethical sourcing or responsible sourcing movement. So we tell the story of Walmart and Costco and Whole Foods and Patagonia and all these amazing brands and retailers. I interviewed over 50 CEOs for the book, and I give them voice in the book. They get to tell, both what worked, but also the colossal failures. We've had some major failures and we've learned from them. And so first and foremost, this book is for the business audience that's trying to figure out how to bring greater transparency and greater responsibility and sustainability into their supply chains. And so in many ways, the insights from this book, from the stakeholders of the fair trade movement, I think will help illuminate the path for thoughtful business people that are trying to figure out how to bring profit and purpose together. So the why was precisely that. I wanted to help other business people who are trying to turn business into a force for good, and also consumers who are curious about the labels. As you mentioned, we have 66% consumer awareness of the Fair Trade certified label, but the level of understanding is not that high, and the level of adoption is only about 40%. About 40% of Americans say they're buying fair trade products on either a regular or occasional basis. So I think this book is also going to serve a curious consumer who is not wanting to do harm in the world. And they're reading, about problems in the supply chain. They're reading about child labor in West Africa in the chocolate industry, and they're reading about slavery in Thailand in the shrimp industry. And we're exposed to these issues in the news, climate change, and how that's shaping agriculture, impacting agriculture. And I think many consumers just don't know what to do, especially in this moment when so many people are disaffected with the political discourse in the country.
I agree.
We're trying to figure out what can we do. And you said it so well, Patrick, a little earlier. People realize that their purchases matter, and that every time we go to the store, we have a chance to vote for a better world, right? To vote for change by choosing a sustainable product.
We have a chance to make that difference as well, right? And my buddy Mark Hoppenjan of Severend, he goes, I just want to leave the earth a little bit better from when I was here, right? And if you could, and that's why I'm that guy that I always have like trash in my front yard, because my kids are always like, when they take out the garbage, like I don't know how it happens, but I'm always picking up stuff like that. My wife, but I always laugh because I'll grab trash off the ground, I'll throw it in there. And, and my son will say, why'd you do that? And I'll go, well, last time I was here, there was no trash on the ground. Right. Like I want to leave it the way we saw it when we first saw it. Right. I would hate to see our Sequoia National Park that was in my backyard for so many years gone if something was to happen. Right. That would be detrimental. So as we start to wrap this up, everyone, obviously, we want you to check out the book, but my goal here of this podcast was to really bring light to fair trade understanding. And Paul, your book is just going to shed so much light onto that. And I want our listeners to be curious and have a creative mindset when they read your book, because if they do, that's what's going to resonate with them, right? We don't want them to think this is a lot of just, hey, you're going to hear from this and this. No, this is about a lifetime of research from pretty much Paul's life, right? And bringing this all together. But I do have to, I got a list of questions that I never get to ask. But listen, there's a lot going on with the geopolitical world right now, right? You're Fair Trade USA, so it's not like we're dealing with other climates, but you still have to respect other climates. And one thing that is on everybody's topic, right, is Trump's policies. Okay. And I got to just ask before we get into some key takeaways, right, is like, how do you think President Trump's policies, okay, on immigration, tariffs, kind of will impact fair trade, or will it, do you think?
Yeah, I don't see it impacting fair trade in a specific or different way. Everyone in the produce industry right now is upset and concerned about the tariffs, right? Talk to anyone on any side of the border, right? You talk to retailers, they're worried about tariffs, meaning higher consumer prices. You talk to growers, Mexico, Central America, around the world, they're worried about being forced to shoulder some of the burden, some of the cost burden of those tariffs. And their margins are slim right now. So I've talked to a lot of growers in Mexico who are afraid of having to lay off workers or go out of business altogether. So, I'm quite certain that our listeners are concerned, not just about the tariffs themselves, but kind of the chaotic way that they're being implemented. In terms of immigration, we have a labor shortage in this country. And I have not met a U.S. grower yet who wants less labor availability. So, some of these policies, frankly, just seem quite counterproductive, not to mention inhumane.
Really good points. Really good points. I love that, man. And again, I think on both sides, like whether how things are being implemented, how kind of chaotic they are, but it's always a topic, right? And it's good to get you to give some knowledge on that. Now, listen, you celebrated your 26th year, okay, everyone, anniversary. So I know you're excited about that. You've got a lot of fun things going on. I want everybody to go out, purchase the book, leave a review for Paul. But this is where the golden nuggets end, everyone, because today on the show, Paul, key takeaways before they go buy your book. What are some key takeaways? If you're a company out there, you're thinking it, you're on like the fence. We don't want to convince anybody to do this. We want you to show our passion and you take love on that. Yeah. But what are key takeaways you can talk about? One, even if it's from your book too, man.
So I have 3 thoughts to share with you. Number 1, the business case for fair trade and responsible sourcing and sustainability in general has to be there. And, I think what smart business people, what smart capitalists are finding is that this mentality of the past where either I could maximize profits or I could be sustainable, but I couldn't be both, right? That trade-off mentality, that's giving way. That's evolving into a realization that actually sustainability can drive the success of the company. We work with Dole on bananas and pineapples in Costa Rica. We work with Driscoll's on berries in Baja California. We work with Nature Sweet on Mexican tomatoes, and every single one, and of course, lots of other amazing companies, Oppie and Wholesome and Awesome and others. And all of these companies have found that fair trade and a transparent, responsible supply chain has been a source of value creation for their company. It's not charity for the worker, right? It's a way to create value for the company, for the grower, as well as for the consumer who's looking for a more responsible product, and for the farmers or the farm workers as well. So business case, that's takeaway number 1. And if you haven't found the business case yet in your business for sustainability, your competitors have. And your successor will.
I like it. So that's
the first thing I want to share. Number 2, no approach to ethical sourcing, whether it's fair trade, organics, non-GMO, Rainforest Alliance, whatever it is, no approach is perfect. All of these models are evolving, they're learning, but it's better than nothing. And there's a dark side to business, which anyone in the business has seen. I think if you've ever traveled around the world to visit produce farms, or even here in the US, we've seen bad housing. We've seen labor conditions that we wouldn't want to work in, right? We've seen children in poverty. I've seen a lot of that around the world. And so, we need to do something, and there's no solution that's the a magic bullet. No solution is perfect, but it's all better than nothing. It's all better than business as usual, and impact is real. I was on a farm, a rose farm in Ecuador, with buyers from Whole Foods. Whole Foods is the largest seller of fair trade roses in the United States. And in fact, with Mother's Day coming up, go get your fair trade roses at Whole Foods, because they're exquisite, they're affordable. And I visited those farms in Ecuador, and the women that it's a largely female workforce, the women that we interviewed told us about how with the fair trade premium, they've implemented a health insurance program for all of the women and their families. And this one woman in particular was talking to us about the checkups that she got, the screenings that she got. She was found to have a precancerous situation. She had it treated in a timely way. She's healthy. She's great. She attributes this fund to having saved her life. So these things do matter, and the impact is real. And I think we've all seen it, when we've had a chance to travel. So that's the second point. No solution is perfect, but they all make a difference. And, by joining and by being a part of it, we have a chance to improve and to change lives. The third thing I want to say, Patrick, and you said it so eloquently.
Tell me.
You said it so well before. Consumers are waking up.
It's true.
Consumers are waking up. I mean, I think, when we started in 1998, so many companies said to me, we're not ready to do fair trade. Like you said, you're an idea ahead of your time. Why? Because consumers don't really care. Fast forward today, consumers clearly care. Why?
Clearly.
How do we know? The data shows it. The sales velocity of things like fair trade show it. We know that Gen Z and millennials index really high in terms of their expectations of companies. And we know that brands that are implementing sustainability are doing really well and kind of outperforming the market. So all of that, I think, is a clear indication of our collective future. It's a clear indication of where the market is going, where the consumer is going.
I agree.
And so there are opportunities for business people to be really successful by kind of meeting the moment or shooting ahead of the puck, if you will.
Yeah.
And I'm just really excited about the great success that we're seeing in the produce industry around fair trade right now.
Like I said, I love it too. It's good. It's fun. One thing I can say is being in the citrus category, right? And we talk about this all the time is that, labor costs, all these different things. And it's like, sometimes we're producing at less than break even. And we're always like, man, I wish we had fair trade, right? To where there was a standard that you couldn't pay your growers this, and this. But again, too, the retailers have to have that push as well, right? The retailers have to do it. But when you got people that are throwing the price down so low because they have to move so much volume, right? Then it pushes the market down. And then what happens? If you're a small player, you either got to go to that box price. I remember back in the days, you would sell an $8 box, a 40-pound box of oranges at $8. You can't even, a break even is not even less than 12 to $14 now, and you're seeing prices out there at $8 to $10 at this day and age, and you're sitting there going, but the retail still at these prices. So everyone, there's so much to learn here, and I think that's why you need to buy Every Purchase Matters. Why it shows with optimism, right? I'll tell you that right now, and urgency on how big.
Dude, I wrote a book.
Right? Can and must force.
It's real.
Force for good, right? Yeah, you've got it, man. Like, we got to get this in people's hands, making this case for the future, right? Ethical sourcing is the new normal. That's how we have to think about it, right? And at this time, we got to get this book out because it's going to encourage you all. If it doesn't encourage you, about putting it in your business, maybe it'll encourage you to go ahead and spend that in your pocket, out of your pocketbook, right? So, Paul, man, it has been great having you, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. It's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate it.
I enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Everyone, get the book. We're going to drop the comment in the link in the comment below, so you'll be able to have that in the show notes. Check out Paul Rice. We appreciate you. Thank you. And as I say, we will see you in the fields and on the horizon.
Thanks, Patrick.